the sort of the thing that all of my family have consumed from day one, no exceptions out of my 4 kids and my husband, is water kefir. So here I've got, this is the sort of finished product that we'll be drinking tonight, and this is it sort of on its way. I'm sad you can't hear it bubbling, because I can hear the carbon dioxide bubbling away in my ear.
Okay.
And this is a slightly different process, because you start with, you do have to get water kefir grains, and that is a symbiotic community of bacteria and yeast. They look like grains, but they're like spongy little chewy sweets.
Does it look like tapioca or something, a bit like that?
Well, they're slightly more translucent than that.
Okay.
And they ferment with sugar water. I use demerara sugar, and then you need just a mineral source, which I use an unsulfured dried apricot in there, and then that goes for a couple of days, and then I siphon off the grains and start the process again. And then I add, you know, through the winter we'll have turmeric and ginger, and then into the summer you can have like mint and rose, and that's a blackberry one. I've got some, we're having blackberry and apple crumble cake tonight, so I thought I'll do some blackberry water kefir to go with it for the victims I've got coming for dinner. So yeah.
So when you're making like the water one there, I mean, is there a recommended place to buy the sort of starter kit?
Yeah, so I've got the grains. So you're just looking for the water kefir grains, and they're available. I mean, probably when you start looking, there's probably people in your community doing it that will be happy to give you some. I used to give it away, but it's by the time I've done it and posted it, so I now charge a nominal amount for doing it. And then you just need some jars and some sugar. And the only thing to say about water kefir, you can see here when I filled this, that I've only filled it to the shoulder. Let me just see if you can hear it when I open it. You might not be able to hear.
And can you reuse the kefir grains? You know, can you just, you don't need to buy a new batch every time you make it?
And you will become the pusher of grains in your because they increase in amount. If you look after them well, they reproduce and get more and more. And my dog is obsessed with them. Every time she hears the clink of the kilner jar, she sits at the corner and just starts salivating, because she loves eating the grains. So once you've got them for the rest of your life. And this is the other thing, that it's just such an economical way to take in, we're not allowed to call them probiotic, but lactic acid bacteria, basically.
And what, you know, with it was 2% salt for the weight of the vegetables. What's the ratio for you use demerara sugar? What kind of ratio do you use for that?
So it tends to be, it's half a cup of grains, half a cup of sugar, and 4 cups of water. And then of course the microbes are consuming the sugar. So the other lovely thing about making it yourself, I mean, or choosing the taste that you like. If you're buying it, you don't have to make this stuff. If you don't have time, buy it rather than not doing it at all. But the lovely thing about doing it yourself is that if you stop the process quite soon, it will still be quite sugary because they haven't eaten their way through it. If you keep going, it will become not sweet at all and slightly tart. And I've tested it. My friend's a diabetic, and we've tested her blood sugar levels with different at different stages, and you can get to a point where for you there's no spike at all, because it's mostly been consumed by the microbes. So if you're worried about sugar intake, you can
for
do
diabetics.
It.
And I guess that won't, does that have an expiry date on it?
It just becomes more, the expiry date is via your taste buds, that the lactic acid buildup happens, and it's more and more tart, and then eventually you'll get water kefir vinegar, especially if it's open to the air at all, and you get the acetobacter bacteria in there. And then of course there's kombucha. See my lovely SCOBY floating in there. So the SCOBY for kombucha is a much flatter. So in here are some cellulose forming microbes, and they form the SCOBY, or symbiotic community of bacteria and yeast, on the top there. And that's it's sort of similar idea to water kefir, but different starter. And it uses tea, so the catechins and gallocatechins and all the sorts of things in the tea is what it feeds from.
And what, any particular type of tea, you know, can you use can use, you know, I'm not going to say any brand names, but any
Builders
supermarket
tea.
regular builders type
Yeah.
tea, can use that, or does it have to be
So
green tea, or I don't know?
So I've never used black tea because I don't like the taste of it. It's all, my understanding is it's green tea you're supposed to use, but I also use a mix. So I quite like some of the pucker teas. I use a wonderberry green in there or a hibiscus. So I always have some green tea bags, and then I add other flavors in. The only ones that you're generally recommended not to use is ones with high levels of essential oils, such as peppermint, because that can be antimicrobial. But whenever I've said that, plenty of people have come back and said, I've been doing that for years and there's been no problem at all with it hasn't killed off the microbes at all. And that's I think we've lost this in our society a bit. We've outsourced our health, you know, quite rightly on many levels, to hospitals and doctors and consultants, and we've outsourced our food supply to supermarkets. And this is like this little act of rebellion of taking it back and choosing how you like the taste of things, and just having the courage to experiment, because it's not costly if it goes wrong. You're like, oh, well, that tastes quite bad. And you pour it away and you carry on and you think, well, I wonder what I did there. Oh, it got really hot that day and maybe it's gone a bit long, or it didn't work for me with peppermint or whatever. But you then build up your own repertoire of what suits you and your family and what flavors suit you and your family.
But how would you know? So with the water kefir, you said it can taste a bit sort of vinegary if it's, you know, been fermenting for too long. Is there any danger to our health that if we consume either, you know, the sort of the tomato sort of relish looking one that you did, or the water kefir or the kombucha, is there any danger if we consume it and it's gone past its life expectancy?
No, so I think there's this process is robust in dissuading problematic microbes in it, and also remember, again, which we have become so used to, uniform foods that taste the same every time we buy them. We've lost a little bit of skill in sort of tuning into our organoleptic abilities. So what things smell like, what things look like, what things taste like. And, you know, all of this is on our hard drive. We just haven't needed to access it ever. You have a look and you have a taste. And if it doesn't taste right for you, you don't eat it. But I've never had, the only thing that I've had is the tiniest bit of, you know, the blue mold that you get that's common, where there's been little bits of vegetable pointing out of the moisture, and then I will just hoik that out and carry on and eat it anyway. So I think the risks are vanishingly
the risks
rare.
are less, but it's just that it's you know, it can be a bit more sort of soury kind of tasting, and people are more used to a sort of sweeter type thing. They may mistake the sour for meaning it's expired, it's gone off, but actually
and I think that might be for them to not ferment it for quite so long to start with, so that you've still got the sweeter, the more sugar levels from the vegetables or from the fruit that you've used in the water kefir. But also I think it's important to remember that, you know, we're losing our ability to enjoy sour because of the prevalence of added sugar in so many of our foods. And honestly, if you just start with a teaspoonful and just incorporate it on a very small level, the jar will last in your fridge for months. You don't have to eat it quickly to not waste it.